Welcome to the Decode Podcast with Elias Malfovan, Daniel Stanfill, and Sean Kincaid.
Welcome to the Decode Podcast. Today we got my buddy in town, Michigan PCB manufacturer, still going strong. Yash Sutariya from Saturn Electronics Corporation. Hey Yash, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. I've known Yash for, I don't know, probably about 20 years. I think, our dads were working together in the 90s, and it's unlike any industry I've ever been in before, PCB manufacturing. We never really looked at each.
You know Yash really well, but maybe our listeners and viewers don't. So how about a little bit of bio on Yash here? So he's
intro?
the president at Saturn Electronics Corporation. He's one of less than 200 domestic PCB manufacturers in the U.S. Dying breed. Second generation PCB fabricator, and he's got 25 years experience in PCB fab. Sean, go ahead and tell us your personal story about Yash now.
Yeah, so it's different because the assemblers around town, Yash, they don't treat us like how you and I treated each other, right? There's no one else to call. There's 38 other CMs in town, right? And PCB fab world, though, there's only one guy with an etcher that can run it through your panels, right? There's only one guy with black hole that can do shadow. Our exposing units, the drilling, the routing, everything that's included in it. It's you guys, we relied on each other as almost like a backup, right? And I'll share you a real quick story. I got a bunch of them, but there was a time where in 2017, one of my operators, Yash, you'll understand this, opened up the fixer flood, and they turned it up too high, and it spilled over into the shadow bath, and completely destroyed my solids. In fact, I was checking it every day under the lamp test, and my solid percentage was going from...
You missed a spot. You might want to...
2.5, right? I couldn't find that. I figured it out, and then it just killed me. And then we were so hard up for money back then that I couldn't even afford a roll of resist, right? We owed everybody so much money, and we called Yash and we told him what was going on, and without skipping a beat, man, that same day or the next day, you came by and dropped off over $15,000 worth of chemical to us, right? And just completely restored our bath, and it's just a friendly thing to do, right? And I say that because I probably wouldn't be having this conversation here right now if it wasn't for you and what your family's done for K&F throughout the years, man. So I really appreciate it. I mean, you have a heart of gold. I can't undersell or talk about as much as I want to express how much you guys have helped us out throughout the years, and I appreciate it. I really do. Even the chillers I run on my assembly line, I got from Yash. I call him up. It's like, dude, I need a chiller for this oven. He's like, I got you. Come by. So I drove down 94
after 3 tries.
Strapped that bad boy up to my my pickup truck and drove it back up 30 miles and just put it installed, so appreciate it, man. But I really feel like the cool part of this topic today is there's so much that PCB designers, and I know it seems like common practice to you, but there's so much that PCB designers and contract manufacturers don't understand about how to truly make the most money on their panel setup, or make their most, if they do certain options on a PCB, it could be a lot more costly than before. And I'm hoping we dive into that and everything like that. And I know I've talked a little bit too much, so just want to kind of open up if there's anything I left out in what I said, or if there's any part that you want to take it off to.
Yeah, I'll just correct you. It's not much of a heart of gold. I just don't have that many friends. And you all helped us out plenty of times, so let's not even make it a one-way street.
Well, I guess kind of that conversation that you alluded to there, Sean, about, optimization of processes or design, to maximize profits, that kind of ties in probably, I'm imagining, to what my main question for Yash is today. And it's with the domestic PCB manufacturing market having just been decimated, how does how does Saturn and how do you keep Saturn going? How are you kind of one of the last of the Mohicans in terms of domestic PCB fab? What's the difference between you and say the other hundreds and thousands that have shuttered their doors?
Well, I mean, one thing is you got 4 guys here that work in a small business, and it's not like you guys have a easy street either, right? So we're probably all doing a lot of the same things, right? Number one, you can't do an excellent job unless you love what you do. Right?
Sure.
So it just makes it a natural thing that you want to always be better and improve yourself. You take it to heart when a customer is not happy. It's not just, fuck it, just write it off and we'll get another customer, right? We go home with it. We wake up with it, right? I mean, there's nothing different about it between all of us. Whatever I do in my business, it's basically, what do they say? 2 guarantees in life, right? Like death and taxes. And the third one's change, right? And you have to adapt. You have to change yourself to whatever's happening in the market, whether it's competitive, forces like, 25 years ago, China came online and just wiped us all out, or technology advances, right? You either learn, you keep up, or you start eroding and map out your path to extinction. But the bottom line, what it all boils down to is you got to work. You got to work hard. That's it. And not to say everybody else is lazy, but there comes a point where it's like, screw it. It's the path to go back is too hard, and the passion's not there. The timeline's not there. They got better things to do in life. And unfortunately, I don't. So, we're here for good.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful message. Once you've done something for 20, 25 years, it's like, do I really want to try to reinvent myself at this phase? Like, I need to keep passionate and keep doing well at what I know how to do and, what we've grown up in, right? I mean, we're all kind of in similar boats.
Plus, work keeps you out of trouble. I mean, if I had nothing to do all day, I'd be cracked out in the gutter in 2 weeks. It's just more like staying alive here.
So, Yash, from a fabricator's point of view, what can designers do, just like simple things that help keep the cost down, or what mistakes do you see them making that just right away, as soon as you see it, like, oh, great, they're not going to be prepared for the price I'm about to give them because of this that they included in their design?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of standard answers. And Sean told me, like, hey, don't be, don't think that is an obvious answer that everybody knows, but you hear it from everybody. Panelization, optimizing that production panel. And this really, I would say it's more for the CMs than the designers, right? Because the designers design the one up, and the CMs say panelize it like this because I want to make my life easy. But a lot of times their panelization, you're using 55% of the usable area on a production panel. And that really goes to, working in conjunction with the board guys, right? Like, let's collaborate. Here's my needs. I need 4 rails. I need this wide. And I like these minimum dimensions, and let the board guy figure out the best path, right? Because you're paying for the panel. Why not get as many pieces out of it as possible? Other basics like, bigger is better. Right? Kind of like Sean, back in the dating world. Bigger holes, bigger lines, bigger spaces, that makes everything cheaper. So take it a few more levels, right? Number one problem I see, right, where there's an opportunity for cost improvement and performance enhancement, stop speccing out materials by name. Right? Back in the LED days, I was up there. Well, back in the lead-free days on 04, I got up there and back then I didn't know how to do webinars. So it was like in person, but stop specking out by brand name. You don't need a brand name of laminate. You don't need Kleenex. You need tissue. That means a certain snot bearing requirement, right? That's what you should spec is what do I need? Not what some vendor came in and told me, put this in your print. And then it happened with thermal management with LED. People were specking out every brand name, paying through the nose because those people might have been the first to market. They certainly weren't the last, and they certainly weren't the best as other competitors evolved. And I see it happening again right now, especially in the RF world. Everybody gets hung up on, I need this brand and this part number. But at the end of the day, aren't you really just looking at DK, DF, and maybe some other property? Why don't you spec your property, spec some example materials that meet the need, at least keep the print open for someone to introduce something, right? And people get themselves locked up, and all of a sudden, who's got hand? It's the material guy, right? They're jacking up prices every year. You have nowhere to go. And on top of that, what designers don't understand is probably at a greater point than any in history, when it comes to the RF materials, the high speed, low loss, where it used to be, a very small part of the market. Now it's growing. I mean, automotive's into it, military's increasing. I even see some commercial folks getting into it. And the designer, it used to be, here's purchasing, here's design. It's flipping right now, but it's not being used. Designers have so much more power than they used to, because if they're just thinking of the design and they have a group of materials that they said could work, they could actually put their purchasing hat on, call up each of those people, whether it's Rogers, Taconic, or AGC, whoever they called now, MC, there's a million of them now. Pit them all against each other and get program pricing right from the get-go. That way, you get everybody to beat themselves up, give you the lowest price, put it in writing, get a program number, and now no matter who bids on your board, the playing field is level, right? And you're protecting yourself against wild price swings. It's the biggest lost opportunity, right? At least in my opinion. Other things is like auto route on design side. You might get stuck, like I need like a 4 mil or a 3 mil gap here, but then if you use it without looking, it'll apply 3 mils gaps to everywhere. So if you have two pads and your circuit should be in the middle, it'll hug 3 mils to the other pad. Hey, get out of here. That's my kid. Sorry. It's like lack of review, relying too much on automation. Right. And I think that's an opportunity, because the argument is, hey, well, it was 3 mils anyway. We're over here. But if you allow it to be in 1,000 other places, it's not the same thing. Every one of those is an opportunity for a failure. Right. And you're going to end up paying for it with yield loss. And then aside from that, it's just basics. Right. Keeping everything bigger, efficiency of materials utilization, and kind of collaborating with your vendor. All these PCB guys, there's less of us out there, but we're all really long in the tooth. We've seen a lot of different things over the years, and most of the time we could offer some advice for sure.
Well, here's a purely hypothetical, right? Say the design files have a poorly constructed solder mask layer that doesn't like super well define how it's
Purely
going to be.
hypothetical.
Is a super, I'm just totally hypothetical. Would you, as the fabricator, take a look at that and say, you know what, if I were to actually build this to according to your file, there's actually a good chance you're going to see some problems and maybe some failure during soldering. So here's what I would recommend, or would you just send it?
No, well, I mean, everybody has DFM rules, right? And it depends on your software or whatever, but ours is kind of automated on script. So if your pad size is less than your copper size, so your solder mask opening is less than your pad size, we leave it alone. If it's equal to or bigger, we adjust it to meet our minimum solder mask clearance, right? And then if it leaves not enough solder mask dam, we're going to let you know, hey, either I got to gang open it or I'm going to get mask on the pad. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, well, I need the dam, so no gang opening, and I don't want mask on the pad. So it's like, okay, well, there was no other choice. So do you want to shave the pad a little bit? We can do that. So check a component footprint. What's your actual required solderable area? Maybe we have some room, but it's like a daily basis occurrence.
What he's talking about, Yash, is basically picture an IC. I know, I'm trying to describe it better for you. Picture an IC, right? So you got the leads on the sides. And you know how, like, when you were doing cam, you could block out a certain area of mask, like literally just draw a rectangle and then put that block there if they wanted to.
Yeah, gang opening.
Yeah, or like a silk, right? They just wanted a wipe where they could put their little their serial number handwritten in there. So picture that, but the reverse on the mask. So all the mask is completely removed.
Yeah.
On
gang opening, right? Is that
gang opening?
Yep. Yeah.
So when I was just doing PCB fab, since I had no knowledge of PCB assembly, I wouldn't even know for the life of me how that could affect your assembly not having solder mask there, right?
Mm.
So me personally, I would just run that as is. But if you
I
do
would
that,
too.
right?
I
Because I
would too.
mean, in my opinion, the board, it's tough, right? Because they want us to use, it almost wants the PCB guys, the biggest scapegoat almost all the time. I feel like they just want to blame. But
I
like
usually blame this guy whenever I
Stencil.
can.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's
Stencil's
always
a
that.
bigger scapegoat.
my thing back then, especially, is like, where do you want the shape and what do you want around it, right? Like that's pretty much as far as my like PCB was. Like, does your board
We've
look
probably spent 16 to 24,000 hours as a group arguing over the definition of solder mask defined and non-solder mask defined. So we kind of start there.
because it drove me nuts when they first brought it up, because they would show me pictures of solder mask and they say it's not solder mask defined, and I'm like, what are you talking about? There's solder mask there, right? Like it didn't make sense to me. I didn't.
Solder mask defined is when the opening's smaller than the copper feature.
Now this is apparent to me after, I don't know, like you said,
Okay.
4,000 hours. But at the time,
Yeah.
for me, it was like, okay, do you want your mask over that or not? I didn't care
No,
what you wanted to call it.
the solder mask defines the bounds of the pad, right? So the copper extends further, and the actual size of the pad is established by the bounds of the solder mask.
Opening in the mask.
Right.
And
But
the inverse for copper defined, right? The solder mask terminates about 3 mils before the copper.
I'm starting to get worked up again, Yash, because like they don't understand what it's like to expose on an OLED, right? Or they don't understand.
Yes, I do. I still have one in my shop.
You do one layer, dude. It's resist. It's primary. It's not. That's it. Like so, like that's your problem. You stick with one. Like so, we are like literally building layer after layer after layer on this. So like whether you wanted mask there or not, you need to let me know. That's it, right? I mean, that's where my brain
I mean, the
was.
file defines it, right? And the default is you build to the file until you can't build to the file. Then you ask the customer, here's what I need to do to be able to actually build, at least within your own capability, right?
And then in Daniel's situation, put in that
And the
paste down.
dams, if I get a gang opening, I want to say my software adds the dam if I can get a 333, 3 mil clearance, 3 mil dam, 3 mil clearance. But in reality, if the customer's good with a gang opening, meaning they have good stencils, good paste control, and they're not worried about solder bridging because they've got everything in line, then it widens the process window for me. In theory, lowers costs for everybody, right? But
Sure.
with design being separated from contract manufacturing, being separated from the board, it's like we're all mind readers, right? If the designer just threw in gang openings, I'm just assuming that you guys are cool with it, right? And we all move forward until we don't. But that's why, I mean, everybody's doing artwork approval, I think, right? If I get the cam file, I'm going to cam it up and throw it out to you, and y'all can take a look at it. Say, yeah, panelization's good. I see this, and if you say, wow, this is a gang opening, I didn't know that was there. I don't like it. Can you give me dams? We collaborate and we work it out. Simple.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it's largely dependent on what type of component it is, right? I mean, if you've got something that's 50 mil pitch, you're going to be a little bit less concerned about bridging as opposed to a ganged open 16 mil pitch, right? It's probably not going to go so well.
No, yeah. And, at least with the advances in technology, we used to talk about 3 mil clearances. Now you're shooting ones with direct imaging. And
Sure.
unfortunately, you have to have a $700,000 machine to do it, but it's possible, right?
It's
Yeah,
insane.
when you
But from a design standpoint, do you really want to lock yourself into people that have only that kind of machine, right? You take your population of board houses, and now I'm going to go to this. I'm pretty sure they're not competing as ferociously on price as everybody else, right?
So LDI has to be one of the biggest advancements in board fab in the last, 15, 20 years. What
Yeah.
else have you seen kind of really evolve and become more accurate or faster or more efficient? But what looks different on the floor in Saturn now as opposed to, let's say, 2005?
Everything.
Probably less chemistry on the floor now that we have new stuff, but
Literally, right?
yeah, literally. So everybody likes to, really go crazy on machines, right? We have new drills. They're faster than the older ones, but is it night and day. No, not really. It's incremental. We brought on laser drilling in the last couple of years. Is it really awesome? Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, but you could always send that out. What I think people really don't put enough attention on is on the chemical side, right? Chemistry is boring or it's scary, or, you got to be really smart to talk about it. I don't follow that rule. But I think one of the coolest things that's come out is like via filling technology, where you could laser drill a blind via and fill that up solid with copper plating and have less than 25 micron deposition on the surface. What that opens you
What
up
makes a
to,
via blind for those in our audience?
it terminates to an inner layer. So, and typically when you're talking about the copper fill blind vias, it's from just one layer to the next. So if you fill it with copper and then you add another layer, you could drill right on top of it and make a stacked via. That's been a big deal. I mean, it's not a new thing, but with the chemistry advancements, you're able to do that and promote smaller lines and essentially build any layer technology. And that used to be something kind of like only in the telecom side, the super high end part. But in the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen a humongous adoption in the automotive market, especially with ADAS, autonomous driving, advanced safety. They are barreling forward into technologies I never thought we'd see for automotive. Automotive always kept it simple. And now they're near cutting edge. And that means the telecom guys are going even further.
Right.
And I think there's more coming on the chemical side, because that's really the enabler, I think. Materials are all out there, but again, incremental advancements, the equipment, it's all been out there, and year over year, you get incremental. You don't have these quantum leaps like we've seen on the chemistry side. I think pretty soon you're going to see chemistry that can actually, like they have, like copper filling for through holes, but there's pretty strict limitations. I think they're going to advance that, where you're going to be able to fill higher aspect ratio blind vias, and that'll throw thermal management into a whole new realm and make it much more cost effective for the customer side.
For
But I
me,
could be wrong.
one of the coolest things, and it's probably because, my dad got called up John Pelletier one day, and, he had some prototype etcher from ChemCut, and ChemCut decided not to manufacture it anymore. So there was just one of them in the world, right? And my dad's like got a super good deal on it, right? So my dad's like, I want it, right? Give it to me. But the chiller I had, back to the chiller problems again, just couldn't keep up with the over temps, right? So the etching for me was a nightmare. And that's why we always kept it to like 6 thou, even though we had the LDI for the traces. But for me, the coolest advancement I've seen, because it was such a pain and I spent so much time in wet process, was the vacuum etching now. I just feel like that solves a lot of over etch issues we used to have, especially on the higher ounce stuff. Are you seeing that at all, or is it? I know you've always had pretty good etchers though, but
And then I forgot about that one. Yeah, I saw it in China. It was at a big HDI shop. And essentially what it is, it's what he's talking about is etching is where we spray the chemistry to remove the unwanted copper to create circuits, pads, whatever. And when you spray, your panel's traveling horizontally, and you spray from the bottom and you spray from the top. And what is not so obvious is that it's not just a chemical reaction between the chemistry and the copper, but it's the mechanical, the impingement, right? That also has an effect. So when you spray from the bottom, you hit the product, and then the chemistry falls back down. So this next spray bar hits copper. But when you spray from the top, it has nowhere to go. So it's puddling. And so the next spray bar, it's dampened by that puddle. So North America and Europe, for the longest time, they said, well, you know what? Let's get rid of that puddle, and we'll agitate the spray bar and create like a liquid broom.
Oscillation, right?
Yeah, oscillation and nozzle patterns, things like that. And it worked pretty good. Plus minus a mil top to bottom was pretty common. And then when I went to the HDI shop, and Chinese are building millions upon millions, and what they said makes sense. They said brooms are good, but vacuums are better. And so if in between every spray bar, there's a vacuum pipe that sucks up the chemistry, so the next spray bar has almost equal effect. So, and it's necessary for HDI, absolutely, because your line widths are getting towards what your tolerance used to be.
Right. Because the bottom side always etches faster, right? I mean,
Right. So you gotta slow down your pressure on the bottom side and figure out a way to depuddle the top side. It's always a fun challenge, right? Almost to the
Does
point where you just
LDI do both? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Well, no, and it was just you would cry, right? Sometimes and
Yeah,
it get to the
sure.
point where like I'm just gonna etch one side at a time and
Yeah.
use wonderful things like tape and get your hands like looking like Bert and Ernie when they had the blue stuff stuck to them.
so we always run lower pressure on the bottom side for two reasons. One, because it etches faster, and the second part is since it's coming from the bottom, if the pressure is at the same level as the top or higher, then it's going to blow the foil up, right? Because the top
Sure.
sprayers are coming down and holding it against the conveyor, but the bottom ones, it has the opportunity to go upward because it's not a pinch there, right? Just blow up and then crawl on top of the conveyor. So we've always run lower pressure on the bottom than on the top. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
it's the
think
same in
the
PCB
reason
fab.
for, like you said, it's more for the balance of the etching because typically wherever you have the bottom spray bar, you've got a roller on top, right? And where you have the top spray, you're missing the top roller, but you've got a supporting roller on the bottom. But when it comes to thin material, it doesn't matter. That shit goes
Yeah,
everywhere.
I guess
Usually in the sump.
the biggest difference is, we're etching like 4,000ths or 5,000ths thick stainless steel. So it doesn't take much for that steel to kind of blow up and then just get tangled in the conveyors.
Yeah, you'd be surprised some of these new lines. Like we brought in a new interlayer etching line, and we're putting 1 mil flex substrate through there, no leaders.
Wow.
No back.
Yeah,
No
Wow.
leaders?
yeah. Some
No
days they all
leader?
come back out.
Get out of here.
On the good days, right?
Good day. On a bad day, you get like where they all go. It's
I don't
consumption.
even know how you guys handle that flex stuff because Frank came over one day when he had like it's like so easy to crinkle that stuff. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, it used to happen a lot with the older lines because they would just undulate up and down over the rollers, and idiots handling it the wrong way. It's a culture change, and that's
Yeah.
why we always had a set group on the flex side. But there's been so much demand on that side. I've actually started integrating it into our production tooling, integrating it into our production process, at least certain steps of it.
Well,
And
even like your
you got to really standardize it, but the new equipment helps out quite a bit, right?
well, even like your shadow line. I remember one time when you were getting your new one installed, you came over and used mine, and we couldn't run the flex through it because all my rollers were hard, and it would just crinkle
Yeah,
it looked terrible at the end of it.
right.
So
You
even like
gotta
that
soft
process
wheels.
has to be adapted to, be able to handle that flex board because it's not a very forgiving piece of material at first, right?
It's not even forgiving after you know it for a long time, right? Especially when you get married. It's just what kind of day is it having? What kind of day are you having? What kind of day are your people and equipment having? But that's why you have standardized process flows, right? You have your startup check sheets. You're verifying everything is running just the way you set it up to be, and then you produce. If you try running roughshod, it's going to bite you, and you're going to end up
How
with a
far
box.
away do you think we are from having fully automated PCB shops? Say I gave you, I don't know, $25 million. Do you think you could make one fully automated, start to finish?
Well, based on that last shop that showed up in Idaho, you need 160 million.
160 million?
Didn't you see that article? Well,
No,
I forgot their name, Schweitzer. They like,
I
oh
heard
yeah,
about them.
$160 million, fully automated. And in their own article, they had some old dude sitting on a stool, hand feeding panels into a line. Someone
That's
should
like
be
me.
fired for
We had a
taking
plating
pictures.
rack where you'd have to like hoist you like up and down, right? So I used to call it a semi-automatic plating line because we still had to
They
load
should
all
have
the
hoist.
panels and move them through,
Yeah,
but I had the hoist
you're
to
not
lift it.
wrong. You're not wrong. But I mean, is there really a need to be fully automated?
Well, they
Right.
say like, the labor, right? And the issue I have is like, so I don't know if anybody doesn't really fully understand this, but when you get a quote from a PCB manufacturer in the United States, you're going to see a higher price than you'll see from overseas. What you don't understand though is that PCB manufacturers really not making any money on that job. Like they're not making much. It's not like they're crushing it on these margins or anything like that. And as a result, like we can't really afford to pay the workers a high dollar amount, right? So trying to get, new people to work for a job that's not going to pay you that great, and they could drive a truck for UPS for $140K a year, like which route would you take? It feel like automation might be the only path forward if nobody else if we can't get the labor force for it, and
Well,
you can't.
it's just, I think some people go to too much of an extreme, and then they make a bad taste in everybody's mouth when it doesn't work. Like that goal to have no people, why? Right? But why can't I have a goal to have just a lot less people? Right? Just the use of cobots, for example, use of simple materials handling. Can I get that process instead of like, one to two people per line? Can I get 1 to 3 lines per person? So I'm not eliminating my need for labor, but I'm reducing it. So now can I pay double and still save money? Right? So I can just get better quality people. So at least that's a route I'm taking. I'm not going to tell you it's working, but it's the route I'm taking.
That's the route my dad took with me, but didn't double the pay. He said just work 6 machines at once.
Same, bro.
$12 an hour, right? So I looked
You
at
got
my
paid
old
hourly?
paycheck. Dude, it was $8.25 an hour I made when I started. It was
Jesus, you were rich. My dad tricked me. He said, "Oh, you're too young to be on payroll. I'll pay you out of my pocket, $15 a day." Didn't tell me we're working 12-hour days. So like that's like $1 an hour, like Napoleon Dynamite.
I don't know. It's cool to see though that you're still around, man. And I know you've had multiple journeys in this where you got your own shops in Atlanta, right, back in the day, and just the wild stories. It's nice to be with you and hear from you and everything, man. And I hope somehow, some way, this can drive some revenue to you, dude, because you're a good family, good people, and I wish you the best. And thanks for
How many
having me.
boards do you think you could process just screaming full bore? Like if, because I'm saying probably expected after this appearance, you're going to get like so many calls. You're going to have to be hiring extra people, buying more machines, figuring out how to find more than 24 hours in the day. So like once that happens, it just full bore all the way. How many boards do you think you can process a day?
Typically, everybody defines it by copper plating between the two lines. If they're running, you're talking about probably 2,400 1824s every 24 hours. So good amount of throughput you can do.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we're about
for everybody who's out there beating we've got to build it here and source it here drum. I mean, here's your opportunity. Like yes, we don't have as many domestic PCB manufacturers as we once did, but we still have them. And if we want to keep it that way, we've got to just stop, putting these feel good posts up and talking about it and actually start buying from people that are on our soil. With that being said, Yash, can you tell the listening and viewing audience how they can find Saturn and source domestic circuit boards?
Yeah, SaturnElectronics.com. And honestly, with this whole tariff stuff going on, you work open book with us, we'll probably save you money because we've been able to actually price match landed prices pre-tariff in some cases. So, it doesn't hurt. And you keep it here, that's cool.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. It's nice to talk to like a real PCB manufacturing guy. It's just a rare treat for us.
Why you laughing, Sean? Why you laughing, boy? You got out of it. I didn't.
I still miss it though.
I know. Yeah, you miss it until you have to get behind that line again.
I do it because I gotta eat. No one in PCB fab didn't fed no one.
Luckily, we sell a lot of pot.
Yeah.
Well, if you enjoyed what you heard today and you want some more of it, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, check out our content on LinkedIn,
and Sean's OnlyFans page.
Not worth it.
You already paid the $30. Enjoy it for the rest of the month.
I feel so ripped off.
SMTAI, October 19th through the 23rd in Rosemont, Chicago. The Decode podcast is going to be on site with our platform there in booth 2403. If you haven't attended before, it's an awesome event. It's kind of the launching point for the Decodes relationship 1 year ago. This October was the first time we all met in person, and we had aspirations of, hey, one day we're going to be here as a podcast. And this year is that 1 year. So we'll be hosting live interviews. Come by, say hi, snap a pic with us. And if you haven't registered yet, we really encourage you to, smtai.org. And bonus points if you mention that you heard about the event on the Decode podcast. So on behalf of Daniel, Sean, myself, and our special guest, Yash, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.